know I told you guys I wasn't going to get a sports car, but man, this thing is nice. So what's going on, guys? So welcome aboard the 2018 Chevrolet Tahoe RST Premier Package. So this thing has the Premier Package, which is the highest trim package available on the Tahoe, as well as the RST package, which gives you a 6.2-liter V8. That's 420 horsepower, 460 pound-feet of torque. This thing is a beast. One thing that I can tell you right off the bat is super nice about this SUV is how it sounds. It simply sounds great. The roar of this V8 engine is exactly what you want a V8 to sound like, and Chevy nailed it with the interior sound you get from this massive V8. Also, the truck has really good acceleration. It feels very, very nimble over the road. Now, I do have to critique Chevrolet a little bit with the design of this Tahoe's interior. I love the layout. It screams luxury, it screams sophistication, it really has a good feel. It is definitely not a duplicate of a Silverado interior or a GMC interior. It just has that nice quality feel to it that you expect from an SUV that costs $78,000. You heard me correct, $78,000. Now, what I'll tell you my critique is this thing right here. So, if you've noticed, the trend on SUVs as well as half-ton pickups has been to move away from a column shifter or a shifter that's attached to your steering column and move to one that's either a center console type or a knob. In the case of this Tahoe, which is definitely more towards the sport side of the large SUV segment, to still retain a column shifter is a little interesting. It is very common to see this type of shifter on a 3/4 ton or a 1-ton truck from any of the manufacturers. My truck has it. Any of the 2500, 3500 HDs from GM are going to have it, as well as the 2500, 3500 series Ram trucks still have a column shifter. It's just a little odd to see it on such a premium SUV, especially one that's equipped with such technology like push-button start. Another key piece of technology that I feel this is missing, especially in that premium price range it plays in, is a 360-degree camera. I think that technology has definitely been, I guess, more mainstreamed in the sense that if you're getting a higher-end SUV, you kind of expect it to be an option or at least standard equipment. Again, especially in one that's going to run upwards of almost $80,000. Now, in the case of this truck, it does offer front and rear parking sensors as well as a rear camera. It just does not offer a front-facing camera or side cameras. I do like the center console layout here. I like that everything is essentially within arm's reach away, even if you're resting your arm on the center console. It is very well laid out. You have all sorts of independent controls over things that some vehicles only allow you to change through the nav screen. I like the more textile feel of touching a button, actually turning a knob and giving you more direct control over things like your air conditioning, especially if you have dual air conditioning for your driver and passenger seats. Another nice characteristic of this vehicle that I don't have and I haven't seen in some of the competing SUVs like the Expedition is you have an actual separate section for your rear air conditioning controls. Most of the time you have to go through your screen. That is one thing that we absolutely dislike about the Navigator that my wife drives, is in order to set the rear air conditioning controls so they can control them in the back, you have to go through your navigation screen, select a real small box that sometimes is difficult to press, especially if you're in traffic like this, to make that simple selection change. On this vehicle, you have its own little area right here that's dedicated to the rear climate control system. And then this section right here is dedicated to the front or the overall climate control. And then your radio knobs, your media changing knobs, track forward, track back, your home screen, all that stuff is controlled from this area right here. Now the nav screen is very nice. I've been very impressed with General Motors' infotainment system. The contrast is exceptional. The touchability, the ability for you to capacitively touch the screen and switch between different areas of it is very nice. Everything works very quickly, and I enjoy using it. That's not something that I can always say is true about Sync in the Ford system, but it is something I can generally say is true about the Chrysler Uconnect system. I like the Chrysler system as well as the GM infotainment system better than Ford's. I honestly believe anybody who's used any of these systems for any period of time would agree that GM and Chrysler have nailed it, or at least gotten very close to nailing it, and Ford still has a little ways to go. In terms of the overall fit and finish of the interior, it has some really nice touches. It has some beautiful stitching along the interior. Here on the dash, it's all soft touch materials. It's really, really nice. But then there are some awkward areas, like this piece right here. It just seems as if it should have butted up to this back piece a little bit more seamlessly. Also, the covers for these little flip-ups, they don't really seem as if there's a perfect flush fit here. So in a lot of vehicles, you're trying to see them eliminate seams or make them much closer in terms of tolerance. So when you close something, you see a much smaller seam. On this SUV, you still have some pretty large seams. Now I know it's nitpicking, but again, we're in a $78,000 SUV, so you kind of expect some of that stuff. I love the dash display, and I actually seem to like the heads-up display. So you may not be able to see it, but there's a little box up here which projects all sorts of information on the windshield for me to see as if it's floating out there above the hood. Right now it's on the speedometer, the digital speedometer, as well as the Sirius XM radio station. And it works real well. Now what I'll tell you is, if you get anything on your windshield, any type of a smudge, it blurs it and it can make it a little bit difficult to read. Right now, there's probably like an Armor All film or something on the windshield right here, and half of the letters are blotched out. So when I get an opportunity, I'm gonna wipe that down so I can see it a little bit better. Overall though, the interior of this vehicle, I have to give very high points. It definitely has a classier look to it than the Ford Expedition. The seats in this SUV are great. I absolutely think they are very comfortable, very well bolstered. The seats in this Tahoe are great. They are heated and ventilated, and they just feel really good. I don't feel as if I have any pressure points that they're pressing up against, or that there's any specific area that needs to be improved, because they just have a really good feel to them. Honestly, they feel like you could spend a lot of time in this vehicle. If you're going to travel across the country, if you're going to travel across several states, and you need to know you're going to get there in relative comfort, at least the front seats feel great, and I appreciate that about it. Now, I'm going to have this vehicle for a while, so I'll be able to do all sorts of extended tests with it, as well as review other things. But so far, from my initial impression, especially from a drivability perspective, it accelerates great, it sounds great, it's comfortable, it's got a good layout, it drives very smooth, and it has a quiet interior except for the exhaust note. And I mean that in a good way. So you hop in this thing and it blocks out the sounds outside, and right now we have upwards of 40-mile-an-hour gusts going on, and I can hear the wind, but I don't believe I hear it as much as I would in my truck or even some other vehicles. Another thing to note is, overall, it dampens the noise very well. It has a very smooth ride to it. It feels planted to the road. Now, it does have 22-inch wheels. 22-inch wheels will generally take away a little bit of that smooth feel, simply because you don't have as much sidewall. A low-profile tire doesn't really give the tire the ability to absorb impact like a taller profile tire might. So if you had 18 or 20-inch wheels on this, like you might get on your normal Tahoe, it will probably ride a little smoother. But I can tell you that this ride's really smooth. It feels really great. It doesn't feel as if the wheels are really making that big of a difference. We used to have an Infiniti QX80, which is their full-size SUV, and it had 22-inch wheels on it, and you could really feel every bump. It just felt like a very firm suspension, when in fact, most of it was simply because of the super low-profile tires that SUV had on it. This one, on the other hand, just feels very good. It has a really good, smooth, luxurious, cushioned feel to it. You know, driving this vehicle definitely feels more engaging than driving the Expedition I was in. The Expedition, I think, is a beautiful vehicle, especially for 2018. This SUV feels more luxurious. It feels more executive. It feels as if you're going to want a high-end SUV. This is the one you'd want, simply because it just, I mean, look at the interior of it. It just has a beautiful, luxurious, high-end feel to it. Now, another interesting point I would like to make is that it seems as if Ford is really going towards putting really thick steering wheels on their vehicles. This Chevy Tahoe has a steering wheel that is still really, I mean, easy to reach your hand around. It doesn't feel like you're grabbing a really, really thick handle here. And to me, it's actually a little bit more comfortable. I know that the larger padding that you're seeing on a lot of vehicles is designed to, I guess, give you less strain on your hands. It's designed to cause less fatigue over a long drive. But, you know, at first I kind of thought this was a little bit of an old-fashioned design. But after I've been driving this for a bit now, it's actually kind of nice. Now, acceleration-wise, it does have some get up and go. I don't know exactly how it competes against an Expedition. I know there's other videos out there that have shown that. But overall, it has a nice amount of pickup, and it feels as if you won't have really any problem getting into or out of traffic with it. Now, one thing I have to admit is pretty phenomenal. The fact that this has 420 horsepower, 460 pound-feet of torque, and a 6.2-liter V8, and it still gets between 14 to 22 miles per gallon with an average of 17 miles per gallon is pretty freaking phenomenal. To contrast that, if you look at something like a new Ford Super Duty, which I know it's a whole different class of vehicle, but a Ford Super Duty with a 6.2-liter gas V8 in it, it's usually going to pull anywhere between about 10 and 14 miles to a gallon. So just the fact that you're squeezing out so much more with the same size engine is pretty amazing. You have to hand it to GM for knowing how to get the most fuel economy out of a large engine with this much power. Now, we're not going to do any four-wheeling in this thing, but it is a four-wheel drive equipped Tahoe. So I do have the ability to switch between automatic four-wheel drive, 4 high, 4 low, and this really is a capable vehicle because of that. Now, of course, you are running 22-inch wheels, so you want to keep in mind that that could be your limiting factor with traction when going off-road. Plus, it sits in a more aggressive lower stance, even though it may not actually be lower than any other Tahoe, but it kind of feels like it is. So, of course, you're not going to get the ground clearance you're going to get out of a dedicated four-wheel drive off-road vehicle. But all in all, it definitely is a capable full-size SUV. One way you can tell the fit and finish overall on a vehicle is when you go over roads or bumps like this, you don't really hear any rattles, and that's a really good thing. Everything's muffled really well, which means the tolerances are pretty close when it comes to how everything is really attached, and it muffles it out. This thing really has some get up and go. It is a quick full-size SUV. Now, I want to give a special shout out and thanks to General Motors, who actually provided me this vehicle. So they let me have this vehicle for a week and spend time in it and do whatever I need to do. They told me, you know, drive it like you own it. So again, guys, I'm gonna have this SUV for a while. I'll be doing other videos on it. If you have any requests, let me know. I'll be doing interior videos as well as more exterior stuff. May even hook a trailer to it. Anyways, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment. This is a great time to subscribe to my channel. Please give me a thumbs up. As always, I appreciate you guys for subscribing to my channel. Without you guys, I wouldn't even be doing this. Anyways, everyone have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you again soon.